This is Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. An informal chats with top business moguls as they share their stories of failure and success in a fun and relaxed way. Get entertained, educated, and unlock the secrets to success.
Welcome to the Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. I'm here with a wonderful, delightful guest, a dear friend, Brittany Huber. Brittany, welcome.
Thank you, Ronnie. I'm happy to be here.
Now, you are the Director of Collaboratives at the Philanthropy Southwest organization.
That's correct.
Now, Brittany, I've known you for a really long time. I've known you for quite a few years. You have an amazing background, and I wanted to have you on the program. You spent most of your years in career in fundraising development at universities, some of the largest universities in the country, bringing a lot of business partners. What's unique about you is that you're in philanthropy, but you work with some really established businesses. Yes. You worked on projects with new companies to help them get attention and funding and support-ish through some of the programs that you've had at the universities. So I'm delighted to have you on the program.
Thank you, Ronnie.
You just finished your master's?
I did. A late in life master's, yes.
Well, but no, it's really unique and special what you finished in. So you really dug deep into this philanthropy world.
I did.
And the organization you're with now isn't just an organization raising money, but it's an organization helping other nonprofits improve their business operations, right?
True. Yes.
So tell us about you and where you are and what you're doing.
Sure. Well, I appreciate that. So you're correct in that I spent the majority of my career in higher education philanthropy. The last institution I was with for 11 years really was unique in the sense that we had very heavy corporate support. You know, most universities, you see individuals and not companies being the bulk of support. But this institution had a unique origin story being spun out of a company itself. So
if you don't mind, if you don't mind mentioning, it's the University of Texas at Dallas.
That's right.
The original university was created by Texas Instruments.
That's right. Yeah.
Back when Texas Instrument was here in Texas, but they were this area was kind of it's the eastern portion of Silicon Valley, I think, in many respects. They call it the tech corridor.
That's right.
In that Dallas market. And they were the leaders in that. So they needed a university that could supply them with high-level engineers for the organization. And so that evolved into what's known now as the University of Texas at Dallas with, 30-plus thousand students.
That's right. And
huge. They started as a graduate program.
It grew backwards.
And then added the undergraduate. So it's an amazing institution.
Yeah, it is. And I was very privileged to serve there for 11 and a half years.
Right. So, and then before that, you worked at another great institution.
I did. And that's my alma mater, UT Austin. And I spent about 5.5 years there. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Now, I was telling you earlier, there's a guy that's done, I hate to say guy, but someone who's done an amazing amount of research in his early career in the business and communities and helping companies thrive and create efficiency. But one of the items that he noted, which is why I wanted to have you on the program, Peter Drucker is the founder of Management by Objectives, MBOs. And he mentioned that the only way to make the best way to make communities great is to have this intersection between business, nonprofits, and the government. And when all of those are participating in that society well, then you get a great, great community, good schools, good jobs, companies that are entrepreneurial, leaders that are entrepreneurial and building great organizations. But that philanthropy piece, that nonprofit piece is so critical to a community.
Yes.
But tell me about your perspective on it, what you're doing at Philanthropy Southwest and why your master's. A lot in one.
That's a lot. Okay, I'll start with you're absolutely correct in that the sectors have to work together. We know that progress is best done in collaboration. I think there is fairness in stating that has not always been seen as true in the charitable sector. It has been viewed as its own entity, and sort of what does it have to do with the other sectors? And I feel very passionate that all three sectors have to work together to better society. And one of Philanthropy Southwest's pillars is that they see themselves as an organization that defends the charitable sector. Okay. So there's actually a public policy advocacy arm of the organization that spends time in Washington, essentially advocating for the charitable sector and its importance today.
So don't lose your train of thought. I'd love for you to speak
Okay.
more about the organization, but that public policy piece is something else that I spend a lot of time discussing with businesses.
Sure.
So a lot of businesses don't recognize how important it is for them to play in that public policy space, either at the
Absolutely.
local level, not just being active with government at the local level, but actually understanding how policy influences their business.
So
from
true.
taxes to various different regulations. So it's interesting to hear that you have a significant presence in Washington, D.C.
Yes. And I think there's quite a bit of, I'll say, uncertainty right now in the nonprofit sector because of things going on, politically. And I think to say the two don't intersect or shouldn't intersect is a false statement.
Right. So the organization has been around for over 75 years now.
That's right. Founded in 1949.
What's the history? Do you...
Yes. So it actually was a product of the Butt Family Foundation, big HEB family here in Texas. And essentially a group of grant makers came together and they said, we're tackling all of these issues alone, and we need to come together to maximize our impact and best practice share and figure out how to bring our giving together in a coordinated fashion to improve the Southwest region. So that's how it started.
That's pretty neat. So I read about that connection to HEB.
Yes.
And I've spoken quite a few times about HEB. I've had a chance to get know the organization. So for those listening, it's a retail grocery store operation.
Yes.
That is only located in Texas.
Yeah.
They are, I think, about the 6th largest company in the United States in terms of total revenue.
Yeah.
They're over $40 billion in revenue, and they're only located in Texas.
Yes.
They don't have a national presence. They're one of the largest retailers of online food products in the United States. I believe they might be the largest. And so, amazing organization. Anyone from Texas, they know HEB. Between HEB and Buc-ee's.
That's so true.
Right.
It was very sad when I left Austin because at the time HEB didn't have a presence here in Dallas. And of course that's changed, but I was very sad when, to leave. Yeah.
What's cool though is to hear that this organization, nonprofit, spawned from an effort by HEB. So a big company deciding that we needed to create collaboration within our community that helped to reserve, protect, and support that nonprofit side of the operation and community.
I think that it goes to a big part of recognizing that philanthropy may come from companies, but there's people behind it. So there was a family behind this decision, and there were individuals that believed that this was important to bring everyone together. So
what's your focus now? Tell us about your master's program, why you chose that specific program. You completed it at the Indiana University.
I did.
And so tell us about that journey and what is it that you bring from having completed that master's in philanthropy?
Well, so this was a decision that I was debating, and I debated it with you, Ronnie. I said, do I go for an MBA? Do I go for this master's in philanthropic studies? Now, Indiana University has the only school of philanthropy in the nation.
Oh, wow.
And
so you went straight to the top?
I went straight to the top. I went straight to the source where everybody gets all their giving data, their philanthropic trend data. And I went deep. I went deep on a subject that I am very passionate about.
Right.
We covered everything from law to the history of philanthropy to how philanthropy acts globally. And that was a deep dive into a subject that I felt my professional experience gave me a portion of knowledge, of a very small portion of this beautiful tapestry of philanthropy. And I have appreciated the aerial view that it gave me, the appreciation for how things intersect, like to what we were talking about earlier. And also to the statement that, history changes things, but also there's a lot of things that stay the same over time.
Right.
So,
and what did you find globally in your analysis and education? Because that's interesting. There's a gentleman we interviewed, Pete Henderson, who created, after his business career, he created a nonprofit, E2G Food. Okay. And they try to supply food around the world for either emergencies or communities that just do not have adequate amounts of food.
Sure. A
great program. But what did you discover globally relating to philanthropy?
Well, okay, I'll try to keep this concise. First of all, philanthropy, the word itself is highly Western, right? So when you, one of my professors in school argues that it really should be called just generosity, the study of generosity, because that has been around ever since there's ever been a civil society at any point in time. So when you talk about generosity globally, philanthropy is it's turned into a word that most people don't affiliate with themselves. But if we just replace it with the word generosity, that's something that applies to cultures everywhere. I will say I just got back from, so I did graduate in May, but I had a study abroad component to one of the classes. And this took me to Hamburg, Germany, and Amsterdam, Netherlands. And that was a look into their nonprofit sector, which is thriving. And but it operates a little bit differently because the history is different than the United States. Here you have the default reaction is sort of why do I have to give? The state is responsible for covering these services and these resources. So philanthropy is emerging now, just like it has in the United States historically, but as an alternative to when government funding is limited and can't cover everything as society needs, that philanthropy can step in.
So if you had to look across the world, and you mentioned that it's thriving in Germany and the Netherlands, how do you compare that to the U.S.? Where does it feel like people are really giving? It seems like the United States is very generous, but you're the expert.
I would very much agree that we are a generous nation. I think, the causes remain the same globally. You've got issues of healthcare, issues of education, creating access to higher education. But I think it looks different in the sense of the professionalization of the industry. So we are a little more professionalized in terms of having, we have an academic, center of philanthropy. We have careers in philanthropy, whereas that is just kind of emerging in Europe. So that's new.
Well, it's again, and I love to hear you speak more than about even the history in the U.S. You have a lot of families that were notorious for giving and setting up nonprofits, from the Rockefellers to the Carnegie, into a lot of the other families. Love to have you speak to that, but it's intriguing for people to hear in the United States how big and how significant it is. One of the first nonprofits I worked for right out of college was the United Way. I served on their fund distribution committee. Soon after that, I volunteered with the March of Dimes, which addressed birth defects in the United States. They're involved in polio in the early years. I was chairman of the board by the time I was 25 for a division of the March of Dimes. And since then, I've served on a number of boards. Served on a board at UT Dallas, in engineering and economic development, and some other universities. And when people look at that length of time now, it's been nearly 30 years of service, they ask, well, why? And I having served most of my career in the business sector, but it's just so important. I felt like I needed to be there. And the other thing that was important for me, and maybe you can speak to this as well, it wasn't just about giving money. I wanted to be actively involved. I wanted to see the organization do well and share my knowledge and insight and my time more than just giving money. And there are multiple groups of people, those that give money and that's it, and which is great because the money is needed, and those that might give money and or their time to the community. So if you can explore here in the United States what giving looks like for those entrepreneurs that are building wonderful organizations and now want to consider participating in the community.
Well, so I'm going to answer that with going back to the word philanthropy itself. So if you actually translate it, it translates to the love of humankind, or the love of mankind. And it really has nothing to do with money. Now, what we've done is the connotation is there because money is a currency that humans use to exchange and support one another. But when you're talking about resources being shared within a community, time is the other resource that we give. So we can give of our time, our talent, or our treasure. So I think it's certainly a mistake to classify philanthropy as only the giving of monetary resources.
Yeah. It's really neat. And a lot of big organizations like HEB, the grocery chain, Ford, a lot of them set up foundations as well, internal to their operations. You've got the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I think it's gone through some changes of recent, but a lot of these foundations are just huge, both in size of their contributions, but a lot of big companies have them.
That's right.
As a part of their operation.
They do. I think that is part of the corporate social responsibility conversation as well.
Right.
What are you doing within the capitalistic model that is giving back to the society? So,
right.
Yeah.
So what's next for you as you begin this next phase of your journey? You just graduated in May from the only school with a philanthropy program. And
that's right.
Standalone, they're a great university. In fact, it was Indiana University. Just a little side note. Sometimes I bring in a little college football. I love it.
Oh, Ronnie, you can't do that with me. You know that.
But the first bowl game that I went to at college was the game between Virginia Tech and Indiana University.
Okay, there you go.
That was a great game. It was in Shreveport. It was the Independence Bowl back in the day. But it's a great institution, is really my point. I've been there a few times. Beautiful campus.
Yes.
But what next for you now that you've officially finished this? You made a sacrifice in making that transition. You have a family, 2 young kids, so you're raising the family, going to class, and you were still working and participating in a bunch of different activities. But what's next for you?
Podcasts are so popular, even monkeys are doing it.
75% of Americans listen to podcasts monthly. That's 210 million people in the United States alone. And yes, podcasts are profitable. Joe Rogan is making $30 million per year. Your content, your knowledge is worth sharing. Don't just dream it, do it. Visit andycostafilms.com/podcast and turn your content into leaks.
I love that question because I can answer it with a big asterisk next to it saying I'm open-handed, but or open-minded, I should say. I wanted to transition in the field of philanthropy from the fundraising side to the grant-making side. I wanted to learn kind of both sides of the house, and I have certainly been making that transition with Philanthropy Southwest and being kind of in the proximity of foundations and grant makers across the United States that are walking through some interesting times right now in terms of funding decisions. And I'm very curious how organizational leadership makes those funding decisions. How do they decide? And how are they going to change in the future? With my position and role right now, collaboratives at Philanthropy Southwest are experiential learning programs that members can participate in. And it's the ability to go really deep onto a topic that is of interest to these funders. Excuse me, my voice. And so the collaboratives that are designed intentionally with national experts to help these funders have the tools, actionable strategies, all of the data to make informed decisions as funders. So I really love that ability to be at the forefront and in the proximity of these conversations that funders are having about the future of philanthropic dollars. Yeah.
Now, I will say that you represent a different level of professionalism in nonprofits and philanthropy. And I think I told you this, you would make a great CEO, whether you're in philanthropy as an industry or the private sector side, but you decided to follow a passion, which I think is great for entrepreneurs. That entrepreneur that follows a passion for something, they're amazing. And they're all in, right? They will live in their friend's garage while they build the business.
It's
but
true.
You're definitely all in. You've taken the next level to have that additional education. You're now traveling the world to understand philanthropy around the world. You're not, I've seen a lot of people in nonprofits, and they're wonderful people. But you have a level of professionalism and business focus that I find incredible. And so with that, though, what if someone wanted to get into the nonprofit world? What kind of advice would you give them to reach a level of sophistication that I think you've attained even before completing your master's, but now even with your master's, I think it's opened your eyes to even more of the technical business side of the process. But what would you tell someone looking to get into your philanthropy world?
I think that if we're speaking to the United States specifically, there's certainly a lot of educational programs you can go through, nonprofit studies, public administration. That would not be my advice. Yeah. My advice would be to know yourself, know your passions, what you value in this life, and then go find organizations that are doing that work. You cannot fundraise successfully if you are not passionate about the cause, because people give to people, and people can see through that as a sales pitch almost, instead of a invitation to be a part of something that two people are very passionate about.
Right.
So I think it really starts with that ability to articulate for oneself, what are the causes that you care about? Now I can tell you there's education is one of mine, but another one is mental health and the access to mental health and what mental health resources are available to people. And that's something that is personal to me, my story, my upbringing. And that's just something that is innate in who I am. And good fundraisers, good business leaders, I think, are in touch with what those true values and passions are for themselves.
So you brought up something that I think would be great for the entrepreneur who's necessarily not focused on philanthropy now, but you said people give to people.
That's right.
And fundraising in the philanthropy community is probably not that far different from fundraising for a company startup. And you've been around a lot of startups.
That's right.
But can you speak to that? Because I've been recently had a conversation with someone who's starting a business and said the same thing, that people looking to invest in companies, they're investing in that person.
That's right.
Not just the product or the service. There are a lot of products and services, but they want to believe that that person can execute on whatever they're setting up their business to do.
Sure.
But people give to people.
That's right.
All right. So can you tell us more about your thoughts on that premise and maybe how that relates to a business founder now that's ramping up their business and they're looking for investors?
Well, so at part of the UT Dallas, we had a business school, and they actually have a program on entrepreneurship, which is unique to some universities. But all that to say, there's this example of the faculty coming into the class and saying, why do you want to pursue entrepreneurship? And the answers are, well, I want to make a lot of money. I want to own my time. I want to own my own business. I want to have control over the decisions that are made. Other answers, and that's the wrong motivation. You've got to start with what is a problem you see in this world today that only you have the solution for, that you will put blood, sweat, and tears into when no one else will, because you care so deeply about the solution to this issue. And in that, I think there's a lot of crossover between philanthropy and entrepreneurship.
Can you tell us more about that entrepreneur program? You kind of glossed over, you mentioned it at UTD, not to take you back to your prior employer, but you spent, as you mentioned, 11 years there. You have a unique perspective, even though you're on the fund development side. You work with, as I mentioned earlier, around some really amazing businesses and leaders. I believe you even had an opportunity to spend time with Mark Cuban, who was very active in the programs there on campus. She's a Shahid was probably one of my most favorite people that I met with you at the university. And she's the Stanford graduate that was good friends with Malala. Oh, yes. If anyone knows, just an amazing person. She has her own businesses now. But tell us more about kind of that journey and the entrepreneur program and maybe some of those contacts you've made at UTD.
Well, yes, I did have the opportunity to meet Mark Cuban for a little bit. He was one of our judges at what UT Dallas has, the business idea competition. So think of Shark Tank, but with college students, and you have a panel of judges that is giving these student teams advice on their new business ideas. And Mark was actually very, very kind to our students in giving advice. But no, the Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship is a great facet of UT Dallas, and it has an academic side, and it also has a community and student engagement side. And there's quite a few students that come to UT Dallas with entrepreneurship dreams that find a home.
Right.
So,
And I bring it up because for me, looking at your career over the past many years that I've known you, you've been able to blend that business side and bring that level of professionalism to what you're doing now on the philanthropy side. So it's really neat to see
Thanks, Johnny.
that evolution. And so if you look at philanthropy and what you've learned, what seems to be the hardest part of the industry from what you've been able to analyze both here and around the world? But I know that fundraising is hard on its own.
Yeah.
But what seems to be the most complicated piece? I had a conversation and participated in an event a few months ago where they were advising some nonprofits. There was a consultant advising nonprofits on basic things like completing your 990.
Yeah.
Right. And how important that is, and getting audits, even though it's not required for every institution. There's some exemptions in there, but a lot of nonprofits might not get that done well. But how the 990 is just a factor plays into their ability to fundraise. But what do you find in your work now that seems to be the most complicated part of nonprofits?
Yeah, I think to be honest, if you had talked to me about 10, 15 years ago, I would have not been able to answer that question, because I went into philanthropy and went into development with a little bit of the Pollyannish idea of like, well, this is just all about, people doing good in the world, and there's nothing to critique, and there's nothing wrong with how can this be, how could anybody criticize the sector? And so now, after this master's program, I really feel like there's a lot of valid critique happening today, whether it's a critique on how nonprofits are operating, it's a critique on how foundations are giving away money, it's a critique on how individuals are accumulating wealth. There are some valid things that are worth exploring. And I think the complicated thing is how do you live in this, in the tension of the both and, okay? Right. So nothing is inherently good or bad, right? So you have to be able to exist within the sector and keep your love for it protected, but at the same time be open to criticizing it. I think there's a quote by someone that says, the reason I criticize the United States is because I love it so much. And it's just this ability to exist in that tension of there's a lot that's imperfect about it. There's also a lot of good in it. And what do you do with those critiques? How can we better the sector together, not just be negative and say, well, it shouldn't be like this. Well, let's find the solution together.
Well, you reminded me, because I served as chairman of the board for an organization in my 20s. And when I took over as chair, I was really young. Most of the people it was about an 18-member board. When I took over, a lot of the people had been on the board for a while. They were mostly very established leaders, very gifted leaders. And the first thing I did was build a strategic plan for the organization. The organization had done well. But I had one of the long-serving board members come to me and say, Ronnie, I understand and appreciate you doing a strategic plan, building this for us, but are you saying we didn't do a good job? And it kind of caught me off guard. I was a little surprised by it. And I said, no, absolutely not. This isn't an indictment on what we've done. This is just a plan forward. How can we continue to improve? And by that point, I worked as an engineer. I was focused on continuous improvement. I had studied Kaizen and total quality management. And that was just my mindset. How do we continue to build even better? But his question really surprised me. But it made me think of what you're saying. It's not a criticism of anything we've done by becoming even better at what we're doing. But that was it was surprising to me.
I think the more, this is more of life in general, but the more we can approach with curiosity and questions and learning from one another versus thinking that we have the right way of doing things, whether it's the nonprofit or the funder or and really bringing all those voices to the table. That's how you move forward. But
I agree. And that was part of the whole premise of creating this specific podcast is bringing people like you and these other people. And I'm hoping that everyone is sitting down and sending this program to their friends because I think there's some really great nuggets of information and insight that they might not hear about otherwise that can help them really refine what they're doing and make those continuous improvements in their business and even in their nonprofit world.
I think the world needs that right now. Very much.
So so recently you participated in the completion of a philanthropy report,
Yes.
Yes. Tell me about it.
So this is the annual Giving USA report. This is where, news and media pick up all the trends that are happening within the nonprofit sector, how charitable giving has changed or stayed the same. How has it reacted with inflation? How has that changed how foundations are operating? So I had the opportunity to write one of those chapters, which was new for me. I had not written in this style of writing. But it was a great learning exercise. And so the 2025 Giving USA report just came out.
Nice.
And so that I would encourage people to glance at it. The Giving by Foundations chapter is the one that I wrote. And but that report has been produced annually for a very long time. And it covers the previous year's data trends.
Okay.
So
very impressive.
Yeah.
So what did your chapter focus on? What was the revelation that came out of your chapter?
Well, there's several. So they're all subheaded in the chapter. But
Sure.
and the chapter's, I think, 3 or 4 pages. It's not tremendous amount. And that was the hard part, getting all the important information into these small paragraphs. But, one of the things that I took away was that, disaster relief is a big thing people are talking about. And it's how quickly can philanthropy respond in these times, and what can philanthropy do to prepare for these natural disasters. And so really community foundations are taking the lead and being the first responders to a lot of these relief efforts that happened into the hurricanes we saw last season, or even today with the horrendous flooding. And so, yeah.
I know it was amazing to me. So there's a flooding that happened in Texas where 120 plus lives were lost. And to see the response for a lot of those, especially those national brand organizations, but a lot of small organizations and a lot of individuals as well that weren't attached to. One of the reports I read discussed that they were running out of fuel and oil for the chainsaws that they needed to get through a lot of the debris.
Right.
But to see people step up and see organizations step up and do so really quick is just amazing to me. It warms my heart. Yes.
And I hate that it has to come, something like that is the impetus for a community just coming together overnight. But, I think when it comes to philanthropy, there's been a preference to giving to community foundations because arguably they are the experts in that community. They know exactly where the dollars should go, and they can deploy them overnight very quickly. Maybe in perhaps contrast to some national organizations that may not have the same rootedness in a community that a community foundation would have.
Right. Well, I am so thrilled. You are an amazing leader. I definitely look forward to seeing you running a philanthropy of significant stature and size. Where you are now is fantastic, but you are definitely CEO level, both in your business experience, but also your nonprofit experience. But I'm so grateful to have you on the program. But I have one thing. I understand that you are a Taylor Swift fan.
Oh my gosh, yes. I am. I'm like the elder Taylor Swift fan. I've been there since the beginning, but yes.
Well, I called you and sent you a note when I took my daughter to the Taylor Swift concert.
Yes,
and you sent me a responding picture of you and your Taylor Swift. I don't remember what era you were. My daughter was in the red era.
Yes, I was in red.
I have to admit to my business friends that I took my daughter to the concert and I went. She performed at AT&T Stadium with the seats 100 and something thousand people. But you are a fan.
I am a fan, and talk about somebody that gives very generously and certainly has the potential for focusing more on the future and her charitable acts. But I very much I consider her a great inspiration for following your passion, for finding something that you are intrinsically motivated by, and in spite of whatever the world tells you, you just keep going at it. And I see a lot of parallels there.
Right.
So,
Brittany, I appreciate you joining us on the Business Decoded program.
Thanks, Ronnie. I appreciate being here. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman.
Thank you for listening to Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. Please be sure to subscribe and share, and stay tuned for more incredible Business Decoded episodes.